Calling to order the Monday, December 4th, 2017 regular meeting of the 37th Council of the City of Berkeley. Ms. Boucher, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Hennon.
Here.
Councilmember Kadekel.
Here.
Councilmember Stedman. Here. Mayor O'Dwyer. I'm sorry. Mayor Turbrack.
I am here. Thank you. Yes. First order of business is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Support.
Motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Baker, supported by Councilmember Kadekel. Any changes, additions, corrections? Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, please call the roll.
Blanchard.
Yes.
Hennon.
Yes.
Kadekel.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. The agenda has been approved. Next up, we have the invocation. Pastor Zach Dunlap, is he with? There he is. Perfect. All right, so when we stand for the invocation, please remain standing after the invocation for the pledge.
Let us pray. Good and loving God, as we enter this holy season, those of us who are Christians wait expectantly to celebrate the arrival of the Christ child. Those of us who are Jewish, Muslim, or from other faith traditions have our own celebrations. And those of us who are not particularly religious or engaged in any faith tradition still gather to celebrate family, food, togetherness, and generosity. Bless us this season and use us to be a blessing to others. Be with our new mayor, Dan Turbrack, and with the new and returning members of City Council. Equip them to serve this city with grace, wisdom, justice, and integrity. Guide our conversation tonight as we listen, learn, and at times respectfully disagree with one another. May we see the good intentions in others and find fault beginning with ourselves. Thank you for the opportunity to live, work, and play in this wonderful city of Berkeley. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is now time for citizens' comments, when you may present your thoughts on issues that are not included on tonight's agenda. Council members will not engage in discussion, but if your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or department of the city, please sign your name on the sheet provided at the clerk's desk. Reminder that you may speak on any specific agenda item when it is being considered. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and city of residence.
I'm Patsy Matus. I live at 2853 Royal. And I am here tonight to ask where it would be possible for me to get a permit to put a sign on city property. Does anybody know where I can get one of those? Surely there's somewhere.
City manager,
What
type of sign?
Pardon me?
I can give you my information, the type of sign and the intent, and
Oh,
there's a couple things that
garage
matter.
sale, estate sale, commercial sale on city property.
I would love to have a conversation with you about that. We'll get you through the process if need be. So
Okay.
we'll help you with some options.
Well, since I understand that I'm not going to get an answer, I do have some pictures that I would like each one of you to look at. So I will start with you, sir. And there's an explanation on the back of the pictures as to where these were taken. I've been seeing these signs for the last 2 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Jay Grossman, and I'm going to be the new Communications Coordinator for the City of Berkeley. I just wanted to say hello to everybody and let you know how excited I am to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Good evening. Vivian Carmody, DDA Director. I sent Steve a list of updates for his council update, and he says, Vivian, you take half, I'll take half. It's just too much. Anyway, I'll go through it real quickly. I did want to do just, there's been so much going on and so much good stuff, and I just wanted to hit a few of the highlights, and Steve will hit some of them also. But I wanted to let everybody know that the Coolidge crosswalks are actually coming now. We're in the process of signing that contract with Dan's Excavating. They should be kicking off. We should see something happening pretty soon. They're supposed to be done by the end of December. So these will be RRFB, rectangular
Rapid
flashing beacons.
Yeah.
That will be at Earlmont and Dorothea. They should really change the whole look and feel of that district, so we're thrilled. We made a promise to our business district down there that we'd get them crosswalks by the end of the year, and we're going to hopefully sneak it in by December 31st. Also wanted to update you guys and the community that our comprehensive retail market analysis and tenanting strategy is wrapping up. We had our consultant in town last week. He met with close to 20 different business owners, leasing agents, and property owners to run through his draft presentation and get their feedback. I expect that we'll have that by the middle of the month. And I think that that will be very helpful both for our property owners and our commercial leasing agents as we start to look at what kind of businesses we want to recruit going into the future. We have a very, very low vacancy rate. On Coolidge, it's actually, I don't know, somewhere around 3%. I haven't figured out all the numbers on 12 Mile, but it's pretty low. So it's more kind of being proactive as we know properties are coming up than, you know, having to fill vacant space that's available now. Also, just as a part of Merry Month, we have the window decorating contest. We do have a jury that will be going around to juror the windows for best kind of overall window and best theme, but we have a People's Choice Award. So if you go online to downtownberkeley.com, the community themselves can go in and look at those pictures and then vote. All of those awards and winners will be announced on December 16th at the Merry Mix and Mingle Ugly Sweater Contest. We expect all of you guys and ladies to be there, Matt, you included. And then also one of the other things we've been working on is a new downtown map. It'll be a dining and shopping guide. We hope to have it printed and distributed by mid-month. We were hoping to get it done by the end of November, but we kind of ran out of time. So we're pretty excited about that. We've listed chamber members in there, as well as we have the chamber's website on there so people can go and see who all the chamber members are. But then we also list all those relevant businesses that are in the district as a whole. So I think it'll be a great piece all around for everybody. And that's what I have to say. Oh, except, oh, no, you're taking over Merry Month. All right, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian.
Doug Dietz, proud citizen of the city of Berkeley for 47 years. The Beautification Committee want to remind citizens that holiday decorations, we are having a holiday lights award for the best looking resident, top 3 places. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Hi, Ryan Gazun. I live at 3159 Kipling. First, I'd like to thank. I was able to participate in the Snowman Shuffle over the weekend, and also the Berkeley Holiday Lights Parade. So, thank you to the Youth Assistance Organization and everyone that participated in the parade, and everyone cheering me on along the parade route as I staggered with my feet. I also was curious, I know public comment isn't a place to ask questions, but was curious how the sidewalk replacement program works in Berkeley. On my way here, I try to walk to every meeting. On my way here, I did trip over the sidewalk and fall. So I carry a flashlight around so that I can see the uneven pavement, but really needs some attention. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Seeing nobody else coming up to the microphone, we will end citizens' comments and move on to our order of business today. First up is our consent agenda. Ms. Boucher, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Approval of the minutes, matter of approving the minutes of the regular 36th and 37th City Council meeting on Monday, November 20th, 2017, and the special meeting of the Council Subcommittee on Thursday, November 30th, 2017. Resolution number R4117, matter of recognizing Aldine Elizabeth Weiss on the occasion of her 90th birthday. Resolution number R4217, matter of approving the Berkeley City Council acknowledging receipt of the PA 728 actuarial analysis and approving the letter of agreement as drafted and presented by the city's Labor Council. And ordinance number O1217, matter of considering the second reading of an ordinance to repeal and replace Division 5 of Article 8 of Chapter 82 Alcoholic Liquors of the City of Berkeley Code of Ordinances to conform to the state law.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Cadeckel with support by Councilmember Blanchard. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on the consent agenda?
Hennan.
Yes.
Cadeckel.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to the regular agenda. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 1 on tonight's regular agenda?
Recognitions, presentations, matter of any recognitions or presentations from the consent agenda.
Thank you. I have asked Councilmember Cadeckel to read Resolution R4117.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I get into the resolution, I want to say a few words about the lady we're about to honor. She has a lot of history in this city. In 1930, from 1934 to 1944, her father was a commissioner sitting up here, or upstairs, as part of, they were called a commissioner back then, for 6 of the 7 commissions. Then in 1955 to 1967, he was on the 6th through 11th City Council as a council member. They then turned to council. Her brother Norm was a lieutenant across the way at the Berkeley Public Safety Department, and her sister Pat worked in both City Hall and next door in the court. And that's not even in the resolution, and it is my honor now to read the resolution. A resolution of the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, recognizing Aldine Elizabeth Weiss on the occasion of her 90th birthday. Whereas, born on November 5th, 1927, to William and Elizabeth Duncan in a house on Edgewood before Berkeley was even incorporated as a city, Aldine grew up in a world quite different in many ways from the one we know today. Aldine was one of 8 children, 6 brothers and 1 sister. Her siblings, Bill, Jack, Brian, Norm, Pat, Barry, and Herb. And whereas on May 13th, 1949, Aldine married Charlie Weiss. After their marriage, Charlie and Aldine built a house in 1952 on the land given to them by Charlie's parents, which was next door to them. Following marriage, their family grew substantially. This beautiful union lasted for 65 wonderful years until the passing of her beloved Charlie in September 2014. Today they have 5 children, Billy, Nancy, Susan, Foofy, and Rick. Daughters-in-law, Joy and Dawn. Sons-in-law, Mark and Tim. 8 grandchildren, Ryan, Stevie, Todd, Danielle, Dustin, Charlie, Alex, and Cody. 5 great-grandchildren, Austin, Drew, Layla, McKenna, and Maddie. And 2 great-great-grandchildren, Charlie and Stevie. And whereas today Aldine still lives in that home on Gardner. Over the course of her life, and her professional career, where she worked for 25 years in Dr. Bernard Levine's office, many things have changed. Tremendous cultural, sociological, and technological changes have transpired here in Michigan and elsewhere during that time. And whereas Eldine Elizabeth Weiss has lived and tasted life throughout this period, has given her insight, experience, and wisdom few of us can fully appreciate. Today, I join with Eldine's entire family in wishing her a happy birthday. Now, therefore, the City of Berkeley resolves, Section 1, that City Council, on behalf of all local residents, offers its genuine pleasure to extend special greetings to Eldine Elizabeth Weiss upon the occasion of her 90th birthday. We are grateful for this opportunity to join with the family and many friends of Eldine as we honor an individual who truly understands the beauty of life and its challenges and triumphs. May the health and happiness her years so richly merit be with her always. Introduced and passed at a regular City Council meeting on Monday, December 4th, 2017, Daniel J. Turbrack, Mayor.
Thank you.
Oh, turn around there, yeah.
Nice to meet you too.
Mind the cables down there.
I'm very proud of my family, and I'm very proud of my city. And I know my parents would be very proud of me tonight. Thank you so much.
Ms. Boucher, please read item number 2 on tonight's agenda.
Presentations, matter of receiving a report from Plant Moran regarding the audit results for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2017.
Is there a motion to receive the presentation?
Motion to receive.
By Mayor Pro Tem, support by Councilmember Kadeko. Mr. Manager, do you have any introductions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, annually, we go through an audit process to make sure that the City of Berkeley is operating at the utmost peak of financial best practices, as well as inconsistent with governmental accounting standards board as well, the GASB, as you'll hear that term used probably no less than a dozen times in a short presentation. It's good for a community to do. I'm happy to report that, as you heard from our finance director at the last meeting, our financial situation is strong, but it's always nice to have somebody else tell that as well. So Keith Szymanski, probably butchered it, but I'm sorry, and Lisa Mineta are from Plant Moran. Lisa's our partner, and Keith ran the audit team this year and did a phenomenal job with his team as well. So they're a pleasure to work with. I hope they can say the same about our good people. And without further ado, the members of Plant Moran.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for giving me a minute there, Matt, to collect myself after that lovely presentation. That was very moving. Congratulations. I am pleased here tonight to present the results of the audit for June 30, 2017. As Matt indicated, we do have a positive report, but I will call it cautiously positive because, as with anything with auditors and financial condition, we do want to make sure to give you the good and the words of caution of things to be continuing to think about as you look forward into the future for the City of Berkeley. Touching very briefly just on the audit itself, for the financial statement report, the comprehensive annual financial statement you have in front of you that is 100+ pages. We won't go through every page. Keith will give some highlights of the financial results in a graph presentation as we have in the past, but do want to state that we have issued an unmodified opinion again this year. which is a clean opinion, the highest level of assurance your auditors can provide and what you would expect to see every year, which indicates that that financial result or financial report is in accordance with all financial accounting standards that are applicable to a governmental entity such as the City of Berkeley. We also have a separate letter of comments, recommendations, and legislative updates. Again, that report is very clean as well. I'll cover that in a little more detail later, but ultimately it was a very smooth and efficient audit process, so we give a lot of credit to your finance department for being well prepared and having everything in good order for us to start the audit, which is what we have come to expect out here at the City of Berkeley. In general, you'll see there was an increase to the fund balance of the general fund this year, which certainly is a very positive and puts the city in a good financial position to address future concerns. However, we continue to see communities throughout Southeast Michigan looking forward and seeing still a lot of legacy costs, unfunded legacy costs that need to be addressed, increasing pension contributions, which you're aware of and we highlight in our letter as well as really taking a look at infrastructure and some of those things that have been delayed for many years and really need to be addressed both in the governmental activities and also in the water and sewer side as well. So as the city has a practice of multi-year budgeting, that is a best practice that we commend you for and really is important as you look out more years to see increasing costs at a time when revenues are stable, but are only going to increase marginally as we look forward to future years. So definitely a time to look at those costs that might increase by greater than inflationary increases and figure out how to work that into the budget on a multiple year basis. So with that, I will turn it over to Keith, who will take us through the graph presentations. And as always, if there are any questions, we're happy to address them throughout or at the end. Do you have the clicker, Keith? Or? He said it's the one that's worn out.
There we go. There you go. Good evening. As Lisa mentioned, we are fortunate to be discussing some positive short-term results that took place over the last year, but as we go through the presentation, we've got some long-term challenges to address as well. But beginning with the good news, we start with a 3-year comparison of the general fund revenue. It did increase on the whole a little bit less than 3% from 2016 to 2017, and that increase was largely spread across the various categories we see here. Property taxes are the largest individual revenue category for the general fund, making up about 65% of the total. That includes the operating millage, as well as millages for public safety, the public safety pension plan, and community promotion. It's worth noting that thanks to some increases in taxable value, the property taxes increased in line with the total general fund increase as well by about 2.6%. On the second slide, we look at a similar 3-year comparison for expenditures. Just as revenue increased by a few percentage points, so did expenditures, but they remained under budget by about $600,000 for the last year. As is typical of most local units of government, public safety is the largest individual expenditure category. It makes up just about half the total expenditures in the general fund. There was an increase, as I mentioned, from 2016 to 2017. Most of that is due to increased requirements to fund the pension and retiree health care plans. Because revenues exceeded expenditures for the last year, there was an increase in fund balance. That number from 2016 to 2017 was about $739,000. And while it is a favorable position to be in, it is important to remain cautious. Number one, it's important to remain some level of fund balance just to have adequate cash on hand for cash flow purposes, for any emergencies that might take place during the year and unforeseen expenditures, as well as a possible downturn that is likely to take place at some point in the future. Additionally, there are needs that have been put off for the last couple of years. I know there are some capital needs, including DPW vehicles, as well as additional needs to fund the legacy costs, which we'll look at in another slide or two. On the fourth slide, we take the $5.1 million of general fund balance and break it out into the various classifications. The vast majority of it is unassigned, which means it's available for any form of operations. There's a small portion that's classified as non-spendable. That's already in the form of prepaid expenses and inventory. And there's a similar small portion that's legally restricted to only be spent on specific purposes for which the revenues were brought in. Those relate to contributions and millages for public safety, the library, and community promotion. The fifth slide, we switch gears a little bit away from the general fund and spend one slide looking at the water and sewer fund. As you can see, by the first two bars, the revenues exceeded expenditures for the last year, which means there was an addition to equity in the water and sewer fund. We call that net position. The total net position for the fund to date has increased to about $15.2 million. However, the vast majority of that is what we classify as the net investment in capital assets. It's already been spent for infrastructure, the mains, as well as some of the equipment to support that operation. So the portion that's left over as unrestricted is about $2.4 million. And just as there's a need in the general fund for cash flow purposes, operations, future capital needs, similar needs exist in the water and sewer fund as well. Now on slide number 6, we do take a look at some of those long-term challenges facing the city of Berkeley. In this case, the pension and retiree health care plans. There are 2 pension plans and 1 retiree health care plan, which we refer to as OPEB. Each of them were measured as of an actuarial valuation in either December 31st, 2016 or June 30, 2017. The orange bar here represents the assets that are set aside to fund the future liability, and the blue bar represents the actuary's estimate of the future value of those benefits that have already been earned by active employees and current retirees. As you can see with each plan, the assets are less than the estimate of the future obligation, which means that each of them are unfunded to some degree. That happens for various reasons. In the case of the pension plans, the city has made its legally required contribution, as set by the actuary, every year that the pension plan's been in existence. However, due to changes in assumptions and the fact that market performance may not have been as great as the actuary assumed for certain years, and at some point people were living longer than they were estimating, those plans are underfunded. So the municipal employees pension plan is about 55% funded. The public safety pension plan is 79% funded. And in the case of the retiree health care plan, there's no legal obligations to make contributions. However, the city has been making some advanced funding contributions to the extent possible in the budget. That plan is 18% funded. So looking at all 3 of them on a combined basis, the assets to date are about 50% of the future obligations. And those future obligations add up to about $36 million. So while it's not an emergency, it's not an immediate need, it is something that will have to be dealt with on a long-term basis. Are there any questions on anything in the graphs or the financial statements themselves?
Any questions from council on anything that we've talked about so far to this point?
Yes,
While Councilmember Hennon is looking for that, could you give us a little bit more of a background of our long-term liability? So we understand, we saw where we are, but in relation to what that actually means fiscally for the city, what is that something that is, we've heard the term cautious a number of times already. Is that something that we should be extra cautious, overly cautious? Because the OPEB does not have, the requirement.
Right.
But is that something that we should look at potentially increasing? Is it something that we are funding because we have funded every year to some extent? Just a little more clarification on that for the residents.
While you have been able to fund it to some extent every year, it's never quite, at least in recent history, been able to meet what the actuary recommended on an annual basis. So the extent possible, you can work your way up to that and eventually start to chip away at this future deficit. That's certainly in the best interest of the city. This is a very large estimate. It's based on significant assumptions in terms of how long people are going to live, how long until they retire, what future increases in healthcare are going to be. So there's a lot that goes into that estimate. Sure. There's the possibility for significant variability over time. However, this is a promise that's been made to the employees and one that will eventually become due unless changes are made either to the benefits that are promised to them or future increases in the assets that are set aside.
Are these deltas that we're looking at between what we funded and what the actuaries say, does that have negative impact on our bond rating?
They
case?
take this into consideration, certainly. It's always been disclosed in the financial statements and is something that the rating agencies take into
And we've still
consideration.
had very strong bond ratings
Yes.
with this. Perfect, thank you.
You're certainly not unique in the position you find yourself in
I
the case of
appreciate
these
that,
plans.
thank you. Councilmember Hennan.
Yes. Note 2, the construction code fees.
Yes.
You know, it lists us as, you know, a $40,000 shortfall for the year, almost $1.2 million shortfall since 2000. And when I see shortfall, you know, that starts to set off alarm bells. Could you maybe explain that?
Sure. So that's a footnote disclosure that's not required by the auditing standards per se, but it is a state requirement that every local unit of government involved in construction activities and permitting and inspections is required to measure that over time. It started as of the beginning of the year 2000, because in the previous year there was a public act requiring this to be measured in that purpose. The real reason for it was to ensure that communities were not profiting by overcharging builders and developers for the cost of the building department and performing inspections. So most communities, I won't say all, but the vast majority of them find themselves in a shortfall situation. There are costs in there that really aren't captured even through the building permit fee structure, such as code enforcement, things like that. So it's almost inherently going to have a loss on each year. It is something that the city should monitor and continue to look at their fee structure, making sure that they're comfortable with the amount of fees that they are either capturing to offset the costs or in some cases having a shortfall. But there are other considerations as well, including remaining competitive with your neighbors. You certainly don't want to have a fee structure that discourages development within Berkeley while pushing people to other neighboring communities. So it's something to keep an eye on. Again, you're not unique for having a shortfall in that footnote, and it is something we see in most places.
And just to repeat it to make sure I understand, we are required by the state to include things such as code enforcement, even though we can't collect permitting fees on that, and that can contribute towards the shortfall.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Other council members, comments, questions? No?
Right.
Okay, well, thank you.
We do also have the letter of comments, if
Yep.
you'd like me to
Yes,
do
yes.
a overview of that as well. So this letter, once again, is broken down into 3 different sections addressing 3 particular requirements we have as your auditors. The first section is specific to internal controls. So if there are matters that come to our attention in the course of the audit that we feel are where a control is not functioning properly or is not designed properly to address financial reporting requirements, we do want to bring that to your attention. This year, there's one comment in here that we've included that is a repeat from previous years, so it really revolves around how the system is set up and the segregation of the financial reporting system, the segregation of duties within it. Obviously, there's been a lot of focus in recent years on information technology and how we safeguard information to ensure that it represents faithful representation of the transactions during the year. And one of the things that we note is that there is the ability for the person who is in the finance director position to have administrative access to the system, which ideally that those would be segregated. We do see that happen in smaller accounting and smaller cities where there's concern about having to segregate those in case there's a need for someone to cover duties while someone is gone. But we would recommend the city still consider, and we've talked to the city manager about potential ways to have a detective control or a mitigating control to offset that segregation of duties issue. Beyond that, that's really our only significant internal control item. So again, we do recommend taking a look at ways to separate that. Section 2 is more of an overview of how did the audit process itself go, and is there anything unusual or significant in the financial statements that we want to bring to your attention. First off, there is just a reminder about our responsibility in a financial statement audit, which is really coming through after the fact and auditing the numbers. Really, preparation of that financial statement and accumulation of the data is the responsibility of management. As far as the audit itself, the scope and the timing of the audit was conducted as we had planned. There were no big surprises that came up or unusual things that caused us to greatly change our procedures once we had started the audit. In terms of significant audit findings on page 3, here's where we would report any significant new accounting pronouncements or changes in accounting policy, which there really wasn't anything this year. There's some new things happening next year, but in the current year, nothing that really changed the financial statement document itself. We do have a disclosure in here about significant estimates that are included in the financial report to bring to your attention, as Keith mentioned, with the retiree healthcare liability and with the pension liability. It's done by an actuary. We look at their assumptions, but inherently those are numbers that have a lot of, I don't want to say squishiness because that's not the best technical term, but there is a lot of estimate that goes into that and a lot of different assumptions. So if things vary from those assumptions, those numbers could change in the future. So we just want to bring that to the attention of the readers. Remaining in the letter, we had no significant difficulties in the audit, disagreements with management, and really no significant adjustments to the financial statements that we proposed as part of the audit. Now that won't happen every year. Most years we will have something that we note, but this year was particularly clean, and we did not have any adjustments to post. So the numbers that you're receiving throughout the year were accurate and resulted in an accurate year-end report. The last section we have deals with some legislative and informational items. The first two really relate to some requirements from the state in terms of reporting of your data to them, updates to how the chart of accounts by them is required to be set up, and then also filing of reports online with them, which are purely informational. More significant, we do have on page 5 some information about legacy costs. So one of the significant changes that you will see in your financial report next year does relate to retiree healthcare. Similarly to how pension liability is reported, retiree healthcare cost, that unfunded liability that Keith discussed on our last slide, is now required to be recorded as a liability in the full accrual financial statements. So that is not within your general fund or within your streets funds or any of that. It's on that full accrual basis statements in the front of the CAFR that shows all of the liabilities and all of the assets of the city. So as information on the top of page 6, so that there isn't a surprise next year when you open up the comprehensive annual financial report, we've included a pro forma based on the June 30th, 2017 unfunded liability, where you can see the net position or the net equity of the city still is a positive number, but a much smaller positive number. As Keith pointed out, many communities, this will be a negative number in total, but clearly it is much reduced from where you are. Also, as Keith pointed out, this is something that bond rating agencies have been aware of. This is really just making it more transparent and on the front of the financial statements. So this isn't a change in how you are funding your retiree healthcare or how those calculations are done, but more how it's reflected in the financial statement itself. We did also include a schedule that shows the future recommended contributions for the general employees pension plan and the increases. So Mayor, you asked a little bit about the financial impact of this funded status. Well, here's part of it right here. And even these, as you can see, aren't really increasing the funded status. These are just the minimums that need to be contributed, and certainly to grow that funded status will require additional contributions or some really good positive investment returns in the coming years. On page 7, we have an item about revenue sharing. I won't go into a lot of detail here, but the current budget from the state does anticipate some amount of increase to revenue sharing, which is positive, even though it doesn't make up for all that was lost. We always like to see that number going in a positive direction, assuming that sales tax collections pan out as anticipated. Beyond that, some more, I would say, minor items that we'd encourage you to read at your convenience. But at this time, I would open it up for any other questions that you might have.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Just a comment, for the citizens that haven't read it, it's a very thorough 130 pages. The plot isn't very good, but there's a lot of good information in here.
We tried.
So if anybody's interested, they've covered everything. So thank you for doing that. It's a great job, and we appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you guys for coming tonight with this material. This, as you've known over the years, is one of my favorite parts of the annual cycle, because this is one of the most important responsibilities that we have as a city, is to ensure the proper and wise stewardship of the people's money, and I appreciate your objective perspectives and thoughts on these. And to follow up on my colleague's question, these will be available at City Hall and at the library. If we have a couple extras, and online as well, so for folks to check it out. Two, I think their comments, maybe these might end up coming your way, Matt, in terms of the observation in Section 1, the segregation of duties piece. Is there a reasonable time frame within which a program could be implemented to address this? I'm imagining it's not something we could just do over a weekend or something like that, but maybe putting a timeline together might make sense for the community so we can track our progress on that. Is there any guidance you could offer? I mean, have a plan by the first quarter to complete the execution by second quarter, something like that, any kind of?
I think that would be reasonable. I mean, I think it might make sense to have someone permanently in the finance position, perhaps. I don't know if you had a timeline in mind for trying to implement here, but I think a few months to talk about what's reasonable, because you always want to consider the cost benefit of a control to make sure that it's not causing undue slowdown of processes, but is ensuring that appropriate segregation is in place. But I think that a schedule could be worked out that's reasonable.
Nice, thank you. And then the comment, we talked briefly about this at our last meeting, about the fund balance that we saw coming out of this fiscal year here. And there was some commentary as to the nature of it being maybe a little bit higher than anticipated, meaning we spent a little bit less than anticipated in this year. Mr. City Manager, if you could do a couple of highlights to kind of explain how this isn't really as generous of a balance as it might look.
It's a well-made point. If you recall, when we moved to the multi-year budget, we anticipated there being either some projects that need to be funded over more than 1 year, or in a large part, we had projects that began this year but actually spanned budget years. And so while we still do owe monies to complete those projects, you got to draw the line somewhere. And June 30, it says, as of this date, you had this much money in the coffers, but we know that there are funds that still need to be paid out, projects that still need to be finished. So it does look larger than it is, primarily because of carryovers and primarily because of some of those larger capital projects that we need to fund over more than 1 year. So and that can call back to our conversation at the last meeting.
Right, excellent. Thank you, and thanks again. Keep it up. This is quality work, and it helps all of us understand the intricacies of making this whole operation run. So thank you again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure working with the city.
Thank you.
Any additional comments from the council? Again, thank you, Keith and Lisa. We heard a couple of times the word cautious, cautiously optimistic, though. So as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, this is our most important responsibility, being good stewards of the residents' money. This was yet again, we've received a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. That is a testament to the finance department, to Lori and Sue and Sabrina at the time. But there is work to be done, and there will continue to be, and we need to make sure that we're keeping unfunded liability, the unfunded liabilities that we have certainly in front of us when we are talking about this budget, and also continuing to provide the high-quality services that our departments are able to run. That's always the balancing act that we'll continue to deal with. So thank you for bringing this tonight, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thanks.
Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 3 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M8117, matter of authorizing Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers to conduct a 5K run on Sunday, September 23rd, 2018, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., beginning at Hurley Field at Anderson Middle School. During the event, representatives of the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers will provide volunteers to assist with the event.
Is there a motion to approve M 8117?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman, support from Councilmember Hideko. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this might seem a little bit early for a September event, but the Stephen Siller Foundation is really excited about returning to Berkeley again. This would be, I believe, the third year they have done this race. It's become quite the fixture, and they want to start earlier in locking down this date, advertising. They have a very specific number of runners that they want to hit. That is a very significant number in the firefighting world, which this organization does a great job honoring. So this has been through all of our normal means. It's been reviewed by our Public Safety Department, as well as our Public Works Department, as well as my office. We see no issues with it. They have building a very favorable track record in working with the city, and we anticipate no issues with them come September 23rd, 2018, if this council sees fit. So you have representatives from the organization here to tell you a little bit more.
Hello. They always ask, why I not get to talk, and they put me up here. But no, so I'm Tim Ayton, and then this is my daughter, Amaya Ayton, Lily Butler, and Lilith Fleshauer. We are kind of all co-direct the Tunnels to Tower run, and as the city manager said, we're looking to, we kind of made a handshake with a New York organization to get 343 runners, and 343 is the number of firemen and public officials that lost their lives in September 11th. And I had the great honor with my daughter Amaya and Lilith. We went to New York the weekend after our run and got to experience the one that goes through the tunnel in New York City, the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, and it was a deeply moving experience. I mean, I was familiar with the organization and what it stands for, obviously, but it was more moving than I had anticipated, and we got a lot of ideas for the run. I think we have great community involvement, but would like to get more, the high school band, the football team, cheerleaders, that sort of thing involved as they did in New York. So we learned a lot out there and are really fired up to get a lot more runners there. So, do you guys want to say anything?
You basically covered it all.
You sure?
Yeah, what do you like most about it?
Oh, about participating, the thing that I think really values, like, the community in general is giving back to the firefighters, police officers, and veterans. That's when we started this whole project. I think I was in 7th grade. Yeah. You were in 5th grade. And so now it's been through 4 years because we didn't do a run the first year. So now I'm in 9th. You're in 7th. She's a freshman too. So it's been a lot of growth, and we've learned a lot about the community in general and got to establish a relationship with the police officers here and in New York. And it's been good to meet a lot of people nationally just to realize how much they've actually given to us.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember Hideko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the work you do. I've been honored to be at both your runs. Can you explain to the people who don't know who Stephen Siller is and how this came about, please?
Okay. So Stephen Siller was one of the firefighters that lost his life on September 11th, 2001, and his family like to remember him by they founded this organization in honor of him, and so he was one of the firefighters that ran in his full gear through the battery tunnel and perished in the towers. And so in New York now they honor him by having a 5K through the battery tunnel to the towers every year, and so that's basically what the memory of Stephen Siller means to this foundation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's a wonderful thing that you do. Just a note that in your application, your insurance certificate needs to be renewed prior to the race. Okay. It expires on 11. Actually, it's expired.
That might be the old. We will get that
Okay, November 10th, 2017, it expired. It does have a memo note on it about the date of the race, but the actual expiration date has passed, so we'll need to get a new copy on that. And also, I'd like to work with you in the future on some of the details on here. There's some more details we would like to have in the actual race application, and I'd be glad to sit down with you and go over that with you at some time. So, thank you.
Councilmember Hendon?
Yeah, one logistical question. This might also be for staff too. Will there be any notice to the people who live along the race course that it's going to be closed off?
Yeah, we have done that. That's a good question. The weekend before the race, we print out flyers, kind of explaining what the organization is and the planned route. And we dropped off, we went door to door on the blocks between the routes. We knocked on doors, and if no one answered, we did drop it off. So we did, try to communicate as best we can. We can also, we can obviously put things on Facebook and the website. Certainly open to any recommendations to help do that. Some people responded. We had contact information from myself and Jen Ivey, who's the other co-director, and a couple of people had questions following up. It's probably not appropriate to discuss here, but like if you can put signs up the week before, race coming, that sort of thing, whatever you recommend that we can do to help that, because it is, we don't want to upset people that morning of when they wake up, and we're trying to alleviate that. So we went. It was like, I think we printed up like 400 some flyers. We went every block. We had 7 or 8 of us. We literally try to go to every house.
Right. So I've never heard any complaints about your event, but I want to make sure maybe staff can work with races in the future, make sure we don't run into any of those problems.
It's something we were discussing with public safety earlier this weekend.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kadeko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as Mr. Baumgarten just mentioned, this was discussed not just with your race. I spoke with the chair people of the Berkeley Days Committee just an hour and a half ago, and the Snowman Shuffle, because people were concerned about, not knowing about the race. And as I spoke with city manager, as you mentioned, put out signs, race this Saturday, because it doesn't matter whether it's yours or the others, and we could reuse those signs. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out that a month before we can, make the people aware of it, and on our city Facebook, as well as, our city website. So.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you for doing this. This is a great cause and a great event, and I appreciate your enthusiasm for this, and to contribute some additional ideas around marketing. Obviously, we have the Berkeley Theater Marquee and a cable channel and things like that, where we could put this into rotation to kind of plant the seeds, not only for this event but for others, but in particular for yours. So I'd like just to add that onto the list of the channels that we would normally think of, but just to remind ourselves of the importance of taking different avenues for different folks to make sure everyone has a chance to understand and enjoy this. And could you guys give a quick plug for your website? If somebody wanted to find some more information, how would they look? How do they? I know it's early, given September is a little ways from now, but if someone wanted to sign up for more information or get on your email list or pre-register, that kind of stuff, if you could help give some folks some guidance if they wanted to take action.
So it's tunnels2towers.org. Is it the number 2? Number 2. Okay, so it's tunnels2towers.org. I think there's a header that says races, and you can scroll down to Berkeley, and you'll find all our information there: emails, race dates, times, registration, all that good stuff.
And we're also on Facebook. If you just search for Berkeley Steven Siller, it'll come up, and there's a lot of information there. But the website is where you register to run for the event.
Nice.
Councilmember Stedman.
I was just going to say that I remember hearing your first presentation when we invited you to come here and so on, and you were just at your beginning stages. And the one thing I was most impressed about with Steven Stiller was that he was on his way there and could not get through because of traffic. So that's when he jumped out of his car and grabbed his gear and ran through the tunnel. And I just thought that was such an impressive thing that he did. So, but thank you for, you've really taken it a long, long way. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you, Tim, Amaya, Lily, and Lilith for everything that you guys have done. We hopefully get some ideas to be able to continue to promote and advance anything we can do here, and we're honored to be able to be a partner with you in this. Thank you very much. Is there, nope, I guess we're good on that. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Kadeco?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. All right, thank you. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 4 on tonight's agenda?
Presentations, matter of reviewing applications for council vacancy.
Is there a motion to receive presentations?
Motion to receive.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker with support from Councilmember Stedman and Councilmember Hennan. The committee is all in. Okay, well, at the last council meeting, we outlined a process to fill the vacant council seat, which involved an ad hoc committee pending the number of applicants. I'm very pleased to report that we actually had 20 residents volunteer their time and their talents to the city of Berkeley, which shows a level of dedication and engagement that can only benefit the city now and in the future. The ad hoc committee comprised of Mayor Pro Tem Baker, Councilmember Stedman, and Councilmember Hennan, and they met last Thursday after the deadline for all the applications to be in. The committee was tasked with reviewing the applications and giving feedback based on a criteria that the committee discussed at the beginning of the moving and agreed upon. The criteria consisted of community engagement, municipal involvement, professional experience, and background and diversity. The unfortunate reality of this situation is that we have 20 qualified, engaged applicants and only 1 spot available, leaving us with an inherent situation in which 19 residents will not be able to be appointed at this time. However, I sincerely hope that nobody will be dissuaded from serving the city, whether that's running for council in the future, serving on a board or commission if you're not already on one. After the committee met, they handed off their recommendations to the city manager. The city manager tabulated the remarks, and we actually were looking for, at the beginning of this process, we were trying to identify 4 or 5 folks to come to speak at City Hall or at City Council meeting. We actually ended up having 6 because there were a couple of ties with the tremendous amount of applicants, tremendous character and integrity of those applicants. I've invited those 6 applicants to speak today, to introduce themselves to the residents and to council, speaking for 2 to 3 minutes on their motivation for applying, their vision for the city, and anything else that'll help the council in this very difficult decision-making process. Those 6 applicants are Sue Citraro, Bridget Dean, Ross Gavin, Lisa Kempner, Carla Osborne, and Natalie Price. The appointment will not be made until the next council meeting. Tonight is not going to be an interview. It's pretty much going to allow you an opportunity to speak, and then over the next couple of weeks, council members may reach out to applicants for casual conversation to learn a little bit more, but the goal is to make the appointment at the December 18th council meeting and to expedite the swearing-in process for the new council member. And then we will do the official swearing-in with friends and family, because I'm sure you all want to have friends and family there at the first meeting in January. Okay? Is there anybody, before we hear the presentations, any comments from any members of the committee? Certainly don't need to, as long as I explained everything correctly. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did just want to, again, commend and compliment all of the applicants for their time and energy and the courage to throw your hat in the ring. It's a it's an incredible step to raise your hand, and I'm exceptionally proud and thankful for everyone for taking the time to do that. It reflects well on the character of the city, and given this kind of talent, I know the city's going to move forward with great teamwork, both in this group and with other boards and committees as well.
Thank you.
I appreciated the partnership of my two colleagues here. I thought discussing the process, reviewing the things, providing our analysis, and turning it in went smoothly, and very thankful for the opportunity.
Okay. With that, we'll just go in the same order that I announced their names at the beginning. So, Ms. Sue Citraro, come on down.
Good evening. For those who don't know me, my name is Sue Citraro. I want to thank everybody for this opportunity. A little about myself. I have lived in Berkeley for over 22 years, my husband and I. We've raised our daughter here. She is a graduate of the Berkeley school system. The reason I applied for this appointment is that I believe I can bring a different viewpoint or perspective to the City Council, because my background is a little different. My occupation, I'm a professional fiduciary, so I understand the high standards of your duty of care and transparency and prudence, due diligence, and to always act in the residents' best interest. I also understand that decisions are made based on information you have at the time. In my educational background, I have experienced advanced classes in statistical analysis, research, and survey construction, which you're probably wondering why I'm even mentioning this. But I think that background could be helpful if we need to do surveys and studies so we can make sure we're asking the right questions, gathering the right information, so we can make the best decisions for the residents and the community. My commitment to Berkeley is evident in the groups and organizations in which I'm active in. Each of the groups I have joined have dedicated members who want to make Berkeley an even better place. To the Berkeley Junior Women's Club, who just put on the annual tree lighting, and also have many events for the residents throughout the year. To Berkeley Days, who raise money for other local groups so they can continue their good works, and other charities. To the Berkeley Road Rally Divas, who raise money for the Berkeley schools, PTA, and athletic boosters. And as an FYI, our next road rally is May 5th. More details to follow. To the Holiday Lights Parade. The parade requires working with many different departments within the city, businesses, and resident volunteers, who all come together to make the parade a success so friends and families can make lasting memories. In these groups and in others, I have interacted with many residents, including each of you. I have seen you all at events, some of you at all the events. But my commitment is also evident in the many city council meetings I have attended, the Planning Commission, a couple work sessions, chats with Matt. So I think I have a good understanding of the issues currently facing the City Council, including infrastructure, roads, the revenue sharing, or the lack thereof, the community center, the legacy costs, code enforcement, and redevelopment. I would like the opportunity to work on these issues with each of you and make Berkeley a stronger city for the next generations. And finally, I'm a fair and open-minded person with the ability to work together and find a common ground with others who may be on opposite sides of the issue. I believe diversity always makes a group better, and they, in turn, make better decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Bridget Dean.
That's me. Good evening. My name is Bridget Dean, and I'm here because I want to be appointed to fill the vacancy on City Council. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, a Master's of Social Work, both from the University of Michigan. I've worked in community mental health and private practice. Approximately 14 years ago, I decided to venture out into the business world, opening my knit shop, Have You Any Wool, right here in Berkeley on Robina, making me a resident and a business owner as well. I've been actively involved in our city serving on the Chamber Board, and I'm currently the Vice Chair of the DDA. While on the Chamber Board, I served as a liaison to the Cruise Fest one summer, and I was also the recipient of the Business Person of the Year Award in 2007. While serving on the DDA, I was on the Robina Project Subcommittee, which is one of the catalytic projects under our city's master plan. I was also on the search committee for the DDA Executive Director, which resulted in the hiring of Vivian Carmody. I currently serve on the Design Guidelines and Wayfinding Committees. These committees inspire me because they allow me to be thoughtful and while tapping into my creative sense. Each position that I've held has honed my listening, communication, and problem-solving skills. Being a Berkeley resident and business owner gives me a dual perspective, which I believe will allow me to serve thoughtfully and effectively on City Council. Currently, the City of Berkeley is faced with the challenges of an aging infrastructure and a decrease in state funding. In spite of that, we just got that glowing report from Plant Moran, and I think it was cautiously, solidly optimistic, which is, you know, how can you get better than that? Berkeley is moving forward. Our schools are top-notch, our city is safe and walkable, and we have neighborly charm. And these are actually just a few of the reasons that my husband and I chose to live in Berkeley. We have an incredible group of volunteers made up of residents who are the backbone, really, of many city events. Personally, I love our library. There are so many programs which enrich our citizens, from children through seniors. In my opinion, the momentum that our city has and the positive vibe that can be felt throughout the city is due to a city council working together in a caring, civil way. This spirit of cooperation has a trickle-down effect, touching all city departments, volunteer groups, and residents. I am respectful, thoughtful, and open to opposing viewpoints and meaningful dialogue. I have a track record of involvement, commitment, and service to the City of Berkeley. All of this, in my opinion, makes me the most qualified candidate to fill the vacancy on City Council and to continue to move Berkeley forward. Thank you for the opportunity and your consideration.
Thank you, Bridget. Ross Gavin.
Good evening. I'm Ross Gavin. Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff, fellow residents. I want to thank you all for inviting me here tonight to speak about my qualifications for the open position on the Berkeley City Council. First, however, I want to echo some of the comments and congratulate the city on the fact that so many individuals are willing to step forward and take an active role in their local government. It's a very positive reflection on Berkeley's strength as a community. So, in my time here, I've had the privilege of working with many community-minded volunteers while serving as a board member and the treasurer of the DDA. I've also had the opportunity to serve as the DDA liaison to the Coolidge Avenue Action Task Force that focused on walkability on Coolidge, as the chair of the DDA's Finance Committee, as the chair of the organization committee on the DDA, dealing with topics ranging from 501c3 creation to a DDA green policy. I've been honored to work with other members of the DDA and also the executive director in the implementation of programs such as facade grants for local businesses and plan enhancements, like Vivian mentioned, the crosswalks for Coolidge. So we've also begun to plan for the future with a design guideline study as well as market analysis of downtown and the downtown district. I found this work to be very rewarding, and I believe that the experience I've gained here will help me offer a real value to the city if I'm chosen to this position. In addition to my time on the DDA, I've also served on the Citizens Advisory Council for infrastructure improvements. We were tasked with making infrastructure recommendations and identifying potential funding sources for improvements to water, sewer, roads, and city buildings. Infrastructure is certainly a top concern here and around the country, and I believe that my time spent on the committee gave me a unique opportunity to identify, recognize, and understand the challenges that we face in addressing these most foundational of city services. Finally, my day job offers me a unique perspective on the inner workings of local government and citizen interaction. I'm a deputy treasurer with the Oakland County Treasurer's Office and work every day on local government issues ranging from legislative issues concerning local government to municipal investing and finance, property values, and taxes. Because of this, I believe I have a foundational understanding of how local government operates, its challenges, and its opportunities. This is another reason why I feel I could be an asset to the council and to the residents of Berkeley. I mentioned before that the sense of community and activism in Berkeley is part of what drew my wife Allie and myself to Berkeley. Another reason is just that sense of home that we found here, that sense of place. It's hard to quantify, but it certainly is real. And it has already shown itself to us and our little boy Isaac in many unexpected ways. Allie and I settled here a few years after my graduation from Wayne State Law School, and it didn't take us long to begin to think of it as home. So we're here for the long haul. We plan to raise our kids here, send them to Berkeley's exceptional public schools. We plan to play at the parks and walk the streets and shop and eat downtown, and eventually, like so many others, retire here. I'm applying for this position because I want to contribute. I want to give back, and I want to be eyes, ears, and a voice for my fellow residents, and to help build on the progress that the city has already achieved under this council and previous councils. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you all for your time tonight, and thank you for my consideration of my application.
Thank you, Ross. Lisa Kempner.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you. I also want to say that I am completely amazed that there were 20 applicants. I think that's awesome. I think that shows that we are in a place where the community is really involved right now and engaged. We have a lot of major issues on the horizon. We have community center and city hall and roads and water and sewers. What do we do about flooding? And a master plan coming up. We totally need an engaged community in order to forge ahead with all of those. So I very much would like to be part of that process to make sure that we are educating and communicating as much information to our residents as we can, and to make sure that we're listening to them and that they feel confident in knowing that their voices are heard and they're being taken into consideration when decisions are being made. I love Berkeley. Living in Berkeley was a very conscious decision. As we started looking for places, we looked for good schools first, and then walked around and looked at homes and looked at downtown areas, and Berkeley had it all. It is a small town feel, walkable community, great school, cute little downtown area. It drew us in, and a city has to develop. They have to move forward. But we have the unique position that we're really small and we're pretty built out. So we also have to make sure that as we're developing and moving forward, that we balance that really fine line between moving forward and protecting the residents who have already invested their hearts and their money and their time in our city. It's a really hard and fine line to walk, but I'd like to walk it with you. Volunteering and community service is a huge part of who I am. Whether it's parties with Berkeley Junior Women's for children, or the music, entertainment, and face painting, and princess parties at Berkeley Days, working with local businesses in the schools for tag days, or informing, educating, and helping residents with Berkeley Citizens United. There are a few traits that I think, no matter what volunteer or board you're on, are needed, and that I have. One is communication, being able to explain an idea and also listen to feedback on that idea, and having an open mind to maybe change or tweak the idea as it goes along. Staying within a budget while trying to maximize the experience. Much like with an event, the city wants to give the residents as much as it can while realistically staying within a budget. So some out-of-the-box thinking and creative thinking usually helps there. Researching. Whether it's the best price for something or a new way of doing things or figuring out what the laws and ordinances and stuff in a packet is, I spend a lot of time researching. It's a really good thing. I like it. I think that would be very helpful. And lastly, seeing the big picture while paying attention to all the small details. The big picture is where you're going, but if you don't pay attention to all these small details on the way, you don't ever get there properly. So in conclusion, I'm hoping that all the city council meetings that you've seen my smiling face at has shown you that I am committed and very interested in the workings of local government, being informed, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Lisa. Carla Osborne.
Hello. For those of you who don't know, my name is Carla Osborne.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'd like to thank you for considering me to fill the vacancy that is left here at the council. 9 years ago, my husband and I purchased our first home here in Berkeley. Knowing that it was a great place to raise a family with friendly neighborhoods and a successful school district was one of the reasons why we came here. The atmosphere allowed us to form friendships with our neighbors. Similar to most neighborhoods in Berkeley, we began to form a strong relationships with our neighbors. Taking the lead, I began to organize our annual block parties, Easter egg hunts, chili cook-offs, and much more. The joke is I'm the mayor of Dorothea. Approximately 4 years ago, I initiated a block email so that our neighbors could stay informed. I began to realize that they were more than just the people who lived next door to me, but they are my family. When my daughter's Girl Scout troop was in need of a new leader, I chose to take on this important position. Mentoring the youth of today helps develop the leaders for tomorrow. It's not all about Thin Mints and Samoas. In fact, we opted not to sell cookies our last year. We focused on civic opportunities, such as fall yard cleanup here for our senior citizens here in the city of Berkeley. We collected blankets and made over 300 sandwiches to be passed out to the homeless, just to name a few things. This past January, I was chosen by Berkeley City Council to be part of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Our task was finding a solution to the city's failing infrastructure and decay of our buildings. I had the pleasure to work with an amazing group of fellow residents, ranging in all ages and walks of life. Together, we learned just how we got to this point. With the decreased revenue sharing from Lansing, I learned about the difficult road we had ahead. With the bonds that I've established and knowing how important teamwork is, together we will continue to move Berkeley forward. So again, I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Carla. Natalie Price.
Mayor Turbrack, council members, fellow residents, thank you for the opportunity to tell you why I want to serve Berkeley on City Council. So I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, but even though I was raised in a middle-sized city, my parents taught me the value of small-town community. My neighbors were an extension of my family, and my high school graduation party included our mail carrier, mechanics, and barber. Since then, I've lived in New York, New Hampshire, England, and more recently Ann Arbor. And each of those locations offered their own valuable opportunities and unique culture. But I sorely miss the connections of small town community until my family moved to Berkeley. We live at the corner of Harvard and Kipling, next to Harvard Commons and across the street from La Salette, surrounded by new builds, new developments. But I know my neighbors, and we look out for each other. And I delight in my interactions with strangers in Berkeley, like the generous woman at the Holiday Lights Parade who gave my 4-year-old her reindeer antlers when he admired them. Berkeley people do that. They think about each other, they look out for each other, and they give a little extra when they have it. They're the people that I want to serve. I'm proud of the work I do now, serving our youngest citizens and their caregivers through Mom's Club, Backyard Playroom, the playgroup at the community center, and our annual diaper drive for Judson Center. And now that my own 4-year-old and 3-year-old are off at preschool, I'm ready to do more. I want to expand my reach in order to serve all residents, and I believe City Council would be a good way for me to do that. I also think serving on City Council would be fun. In my previous career as a high school English teacher, I think I was the only faculty member who truly looked forward to our bi-monthly faculty meetings. I loved them. I love gathering with smart, creative people and solving problems together. Between the roll call and the motion to adjourn, amazing things can happen. Formal meetings provide focus, making way for intentional collaboration, and I find them very powerful and fulfilling. Most importantly, I want to be on Berkeley City Council because I want to protect, preserve, and improve the city that I'm proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. So I want to, first off, congratulate all of you and thank you for being so efficient with your time, all of you. Did not have to, I wasn't even worried. I ever had to reach for the gavel. So thank you for being able to very eloquently explain who you are, what your motivation is, and why you want to be a part of this. So it is certainly going to be a very difficult decision for council. We have a number of excellent people who have applied, all 20, and it's not going to be easy. I want to reiterate again, the appointment will be made at the next council meeting. In the interim, as I said, you may be reached out to by council members to have a casual conversation, get to know maybe a little bit more about your vision, maybe give you slightly more than the 3 minutes that you were allotted today. So I look forward to that. And then again, the appointment will be made at the December 18th council meeting. Does anybody have any comments before we move on?
Good.
Seeing none, thank you all for attending and being here. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 5 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M8217, matter of approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Berkeley and the City of Huntington Woods for shared resources and services.
Is there a motion to approve M8217?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by the Mayor Pro Tem with support from Council Member Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item that is coming back to the Berkeley City Council after having been successfully implemented since 2013. We have worked with our partners to the south, the City of Huntington Woods, since that point. We share things like rock salt and fuel primarily, but there's also provisions in here for other shared services and resources and a way to place a value on those and how to bill them appropriately. This is a 2-year term contract, and there is ability for another 2 years to come after that as well. We have a similar program in place with Berkeley Schools that has also likewise worked out very well. And primarily this is an exchange between our Department of Public Services and our counterparts across 11 Mile there. So I know Derek Schuler is here to answer any specific questions, but that is a general overview of what we're looking at this evening.
Good evening. Thanks, Matt. No real changes here. The city's attorney has reviewed the document. Huntington Woods has obviously reviewed the document as well. So this is pretty much the same agreement that we've entered into for a few years now. As Matt alluded to, the primary components have been rock salt and fuel, which we provide to Huntington Woods, and then we track that and bill them accordingly. In the appendices, which were part of your agreement, you see the tracking spreadsheets that I develop and create, and then ultimately get used for billing purposes. Some of those commodity rates can change in time, fuel as an example. Rock salt's usually locked in for the year based on bids, but some things can change, and when those do change, those prices get reflected. It does open us up, though, for other opportunities, whether it's sharing a piece of equipment or sharing other things. This document gives us that ability to do it. In addition, we have a similar arrangement with the Berkeley School District as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our Director of Public Works? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Honor. Thank you again for preparing this and bringing it to us. I do think that the degree to which our neighboring communities can help interact with one another and provide these kinds of shared services is a good testament to the value that we can bring by buying this in bulk and sharing it, as appropriate and those types of things. Could you describe a little bit about the communication that goes on between our departments and teams do they just show up and say, hey, we need some salt, or do you guys have meetings to talk about upcoming needs for the next month? How do you guys tell us behind the scenes how it kind of works?
Sure.
As a partnership.
For fuel, for example, it's a keyed system, so each community or each department, if you will, has their own specific key that's used at the fuel pump, so they basically just pull in and fuel up using their key, and then those amounts are tracked. As it relates to rock salt, yes, they basically come into the shop, and we're often the ones that assist them in loading the salt. There's tracking that's done via slip of paper that reflects the tonnage that they used for the salt, and then we basically send that information to the finance department when they're looking to do the billing purposes. So that's in a nutshell how it works.
Sure. And do they likewise need to make a similar motion through their council and things in order to kind of reciprocate from a contractual perspective?
That is correct, and my understanding is that they have done that already as well. So they have approved the agreement in form, and so we're basically the last step will be the last signature and date on the agreement.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm glad to see that, and everybody should know that there is a very substantial cost that the city pays for the fuel island, for all of the inspections we have to have, because we have to have certified people monitor that. We have to have all our people trained, and we do prorate that cost to both Huntington Woods and the school district, so they're paying their fair share of those extra costs above and beyond the actual cost of the fuel. So
that is correct.
Councilmember Cadeco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Schuler. So just to clarify, does Huntington Woods have 24/7 access to our yard?
They do. They do. There's communication, phone conversations that happen. Salt events, for instance, we're usually both on the same schedule when it comes to that. But yes, they do have access to our yard. When the gate is locked, you know, they have the ability to have access. There's cameras in the yard, so we have video surveillance as well. But yes, they do have access to our yard.
Thank you.
Seems that this is one of a mutually beneficial agreement for both parties. We certainly like to be as efficient with our resources and work with our neighbors in the school district as frequently as possible. Thank you, Mr. Schuler. And with no other comments, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M8217?
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Kadeco?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 6 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M8317, matter of authorizing Hubble, Roth & Clark, HRC, to complete design services for the Catalpa Sewer Replacement Project, Gardner to Griffith, in an amount not to exceed $13,850.
Is there a motion to approve M8317?
Move to approve.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Kadeco with support from Councilmember Stedman. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you recall, all the way back in 2013, we enrolled in a program with the state to do a cleaning and televising of our entire combined sewer system. SAW was the acronym that was used for that program. What we did was, again, we evaluated each pipe segment to make sure that it was in good health and identified those that were had a need for either replacements or relining. Derek and his staff does a phenomenal job of going through there, taking that data, building it into a replacement plan, a capital improvements plan, and a maintenance plan. And the proof of that and the fruit of that comes to you this evening, and asking HRC to design a project to replace a section of pipe. So Derek, want to elaborate on it?
Sure. Thank you, Matt. And this is the result of the SAW grant. Typically, when it comes to pipes, we structurally line every year, and we're doing well over a mile a year now, which we're very proud of. This particular segment of pipe is not a candidate for lining. I was hoping that would be the case, but after doing some significant investigation based on its existing cross-section, we need to replace this particular pipe, whether that be open cut, whether that be directional drilling, pipe bursting. We're going to look at many different options for this particular segment. It's a 280-foot total stretch. The area that we're talking about is not 280 feet long, but we'll end up replacing this full run of pipe. So this is a proposal for design services, which is the first step to doing that replacement project in the near future. So we'll be looking at all of those options, and we're going to choose the most cost-effective, the option with the least amount of impacts to our residents. This particular pipe only serves about 4 homes, so there's not much flow on this particular pipe. Doesn't mean it's not important, but just to put that in perspective a little bit, this serves about 4 homes only. You know, when you have to spend this amount of money. I'd much rather line it because I can get away with a lot more lining when it comes to replacement. But there will be cases where we have to do full pipe replacement, and this is one of those cases where lining it is just too risky, so we want to do a full replacement. Again, this came about from the SAW grant. The first step is design. I expect design to take a couple months. There'll be permitting involved in design, and then just as soon as we can get this out to bid, we will do so and then move on into construction. I'm not opposed to even bidding it a couple different ways, open cut versus directional drilling, to see how prices come back. As far as a construction cost, you know, we're estimating here, but at $80,000, potentially upwards of $100,000 is expected for construction costs, just to give you a sense of what we're dealing with there. Again, it will depend on the construction method that we ultimately pick, but that's kind of the synopsis in a nutshell, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you elaborate on where this pipe is located? It's not under the street.
No, but it is in what I would call, you know, the influence of the street. So depending on the construction method that we choose, you know, that trench could impact the street. We're going to look at all of those things: street impacts, trees, all of those major components that will certainly impact costs as well. So, and it's between Gardner and Griffith on Catalpa, I mentioned that, and it's about a 280-foot long stretch.
It looks like it's about under the sidewalk.
Yeah. And so that right-of-way, basically right-of-way to road, will be impacted. But, you know, you're looking at a pipe that's probably in that, you know, 12-foot depth kind of range. So it's going to be, if it's open cut, it's going to be a wide trench. It will have to be. But again, I'm hoping maybe even directional drilling where you don't have the open trench is a possibility. We'll look at a few different options and pick the best one.
One more thing, since this is right across the street from the school, basically, is there a possibility that we can do this in June after school is out, or trying to coordinate it through that?
Yes, we've already talked about that. We're definitely going to be pushing to have this done without school in session, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Knekel?
Councilmember Blanchard asked the question.
Never mind. Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, are we aware of any other pipes that are in a similar situation that we might be looking at repairs?
Good question. Nothing like this, Councilman. So this is, and again, it's a pipe that we would traditionally line, but based on its current condition, they just are not comfortable lining this pipe. So if we're not comfortable lining it, we're going to go ahead and do pipe replacement. But there is no other pipes like this that I'm aware of. And we are establishing that list of lining applications just so the council's aware, based on the SAW grant. I've already developed that list of several segments of pipe for the next round of sewer lining, which is going to take shape relatively soon. We are under contract. We have a 3-year bid with Liquiforce to do that work, and so that process will also be taking shape shortly. That information gets posted on the website under the DPW tab, so you can check that out, see if you happen to be in that area, but no other pipes like that we're aware of. And, you know, things can change. That's why it's important for us to be in the pipe, cleaning it, televising it every 2 to 3 years, cycling through the city to make sure that we've got a good handle on what's out there.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, thank you for preparing this and, as mentioned, helping keep an eye on one of our most precious services and infrastructure that we can provide to our residents. You mentioned this serves about 4 homes or things like that. Can you describe, of course it depends on the nature of the construction and all that, but any kind of inkling as to the impact to them and the duration of time? Is this like something they do over a weekend, or are we talking like a 4-month?
Oh, no. Yeah, this, and it will depend on the construction method, but, you know, the contractor would be responsible for maintaining the flow for those 4 homes. Most of the time in these situations, you work with the homeowner to limit flows into the system for the short period where they're working on that particular line. We're not talking several days by any stretch of the imagination. Realistically, you're talking about really a day where they're paying attention to flows and making sure that they reconnect that sanitary lead to the main. So we will be in direct communication with those 4 residents throughout the project.
Good, thanks. And in the course of recent conversations around infrastructure, we've talked about the combined versus the separate lines and things. Given the scope of this is around 4 homes or so, 280 feet, could you describe the appropriateness of looking to separate the two versus keeping it combined, given the size and the
Well, and that question is really, where do we take the flow in this situation? Certainly with 4 homes, this particular stretch does not take any road drainage. Capacity in this instance is really not a concern because we're not taking any flow from the roadway drainage. So the size of the pipe is perfectly adequate for the amount of homes that are connected to it. So again, you've got to look at it, the capacity discussion and the maintaining the current asset discussion are sort of 2 separate discussions, both of which the community needs to have. This one's falling on that operation and maintenance of maintaining our system so that we limit the probability of pipe collapses. That's what this is all about. That's what lining is all about. And the capacity discussion, as we continue on with that study, that's going to look at other things so you have to look at those almost in 2 different ways. But given what this particular pipe serves, there wouldn't be any reason to look at changing the size or building additional pipes with it.
Right, thank you. And then connecting to one end and the other end, the pipe that's already there, we don't anticipate any adverse effects on the pipe that is deemed to be of better quality than the one that we're replacing?
We do not. We've been through those pipes as well and videoed those, and we have no concerns with those at all.
Right, thank you.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is there a throughput issue on this one coming from other areas passing through this particular pipe?
There is not. So this would be on the upstream end of the system, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's not a lot of pass-through drainage at all. Again, which sort of, to spend this amount of money, you sort of, boy, I wish we could line it, and that's why we were looking at every other option to potentially line it. But in this case, we do have to do a pipe replacement.
Thank you, Derek. As we continue the conversation, looking at ways to improve our sewer and water system right now, to have a project like this, just to give us some perspective, helps. So we're talking about 280 feet, got 12-inch diameter, and we got about 100 grand or so, not even counting these engineering fees that we're talking about right now. That's the total project, right?
Right.
Okay.
And to put that in perspective, it's, we do that, we're able to do over a mile now of lining, 250,000 for that. So that helps put in perspective. Obviously, the lining is much more economical in many different ways. So we're always looking to do the structural lining whenever possible.
Right. Thank you, and thank you for all of this information tonight. Ms. Bouch, would you please call the roll on M8317?
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Kadeco?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 7 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R4317, matter of approving the renewal of the video service local franchise agreement for AT&T Michigan.
Is there a motion to approve R4317?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Hennan. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually will ask the city's attorney to discuss this as they've been working through this process, and he provided I think a very well-written, very well-detailed report in your packet about some of the choices the state of Michigan has made over the last decade or so as far as how they handle these types of agreements. And I like to note at any point possible where I feel local control is being usurped by the state. This process was certainly one of those areas, but that could be a long diatribe in and of itself, and I would probably exceed 2 to 3 minutes of comment time. I will like to call your attention. I would like to call your attention to the fact that as far as the revenue goes, the city is going to receive 5% franchise fee from AT&T and a 1% PEG fee under the current agreement. So that is each of the contracts that AT&T has inside the city. The city does receive a percentage of those. But Mr. Attorney, can you go into a greater amount of detail on this item, please?
Thank you, City Manager. Yes, what this is a renewal of AT&T's proposed local cable franchise agreement. The state passed legislation, as the City Manager indicated, back in 2006, which really undermined the ability of local municipalities to negotiate with respect to the terms of cable franchise agreements. This proposed a renewal is just that. It is a renewal. It is a proposed 10-year term based on the same form and fees as set forth in the current agreement. As required by law, the city has 30 days on completion of the franchise agreement being presented to the city to consider whether it wishes to renew the franchise agreement. As it is a renewal and the city's options relative to the underlying terms are limited, and it is proposed to be the exact same terms, it is approved as to form, and the recommendation that council consider.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. For folks that may have not had a chance to study the full document in detail, could either or both of you provide at a high level what are some of the things that we're actually agreeing to? Meaning, what is in this contract in the first place? You know, is it just access to the polls?
I'm
access,
subject to
those kinds
ranting,
of
so
things?
by all means.
It provides authorization to AT&T of Michigan to continue to provide cable franchise services to the businesses and residents of the city of Berkeley. And so there is a provision that the 5% franchise fee only applies to cable services, and also the 1% PEG is as it relates to cable revenues. There is a provision of the proposed resolution for the city of Berkeley to reserve the right to the extent that there's a challenge asserted by any franchising authority, other adjacent municipalities that may wish to endeavor to challenge the underlying legislation that has allowed for this, that the city of Berkeley would not be waiving its right to join in any such litigation or potential modification should a court provide such relief. So it is as it relates to cable services, not other services.
Okay, and I imagine that that certainly we would at least help move forward with this. But what would be the impact, or if we were, or if a community was to not move forward with this? Would they have to pack up shop and cancel the accounts? I mean, what, from a business perspective, what happens if we don't do this tonight?
Well, it's likely that they would bring an action. I believe it goes to the Metro Act, the Metro Authority, which would essentially be an administrative proceeding as it relates to the basis, whatever basis council might articulate as being the appropriate basis to decline to extend a franchise agreement that it has so for the last 10 years approved. So it would be, were that the inclination of council, I would suggest that council table the matter to the 18th to really develop the rationale or factual support for that type of action.
Yeah, I was just curious. I don't think there's a one, especially given the preamble about the state's overarching drive with this and the lack of local control and things like that. I was mostly just curious from a theoretical perspective. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we take any action. I don't know that it's warranted. So I was just curious. Thank you.
Don't know that it would matter.
Yeah, I think that's it, because you basically said they take us to court, so.
We say no, they sue us and win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, again, I would, it would be very significant and important for particular facts that would warrant such
Right.
a action to be developed and made part of the record.
That's right. Thank you.
Councilmember Blanchard?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the AT&T, the only cable company in Berkeley that doesn't have the honor of their customers seeing us on a local cable channel. Is there anything we can do to get them to, be able to look at this great site every council meeting, or can we not demand such a thing as that?
Working with them on a separate track and through CMN TV on trying to find out something that works. There's there's a expense and a quality issue associated with hosting public access channels on Uverse. Some do it. I know we did it in a former community, but we continue to work through that issue and trying to get the good people, the good UVerse customers of Berkeley involved in getting to see these meetings. So we're working on a separate track. Unfortunately, it's not part of our ability to negotiate through this agreement.
I'd like to reiterate, this is part of the Metro Act, right? We've been fighting this and fighting the Metro Act for years as far as things that they want to do in the city. We have to be very diligent and watch what they're attempting to do so that we don't let them go ahead with things that and our residents don't think are appropriate, such as the taller poles and the DAS system and that sort of thing. So,
yeah,
thank you.
AT&T has been active in our community recently, installing things wherever they want, because they have easement rights and there are rights based on this, and there's not a whole lot, as long as they're within those easements, that we can do about it, whether that happens to be on your property or on municipal property. Again, this is not something that we have, unfortunately, much control over. The state has decided that they would expect municipalities to play nice with allowing these companies to just kind of come in and have carte blanche. They don't have to notify residents. They're supposed to, but they don't have to. And again, it leaves us with very little say or control on what happens, not only on city property, but on private property as well. That certainly can happen. So don't be surprised to see people in your backyard installing some sort of post. And if we say no, it doesn't matter. When we say no, we get sued, we lose. I imagine AT&T and their attorneys probably have more money than we have to fight something like that. So it is what it is. We certainly want to work with them because we do want our residents to be able to see our city on UVerse, to be able to see our city meetings. So with that, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Oh, I'm sorry. Blanchard.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Kadeco.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item 8 on tonight's agenda?
Public hearing, matter of holding a public hearing regarding the Community Development Block Grant Program Year 2018 application in the approximate amount of $31,914 to fund eligible projects.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the public meeting for the Community Development Block Grant for Program Year 2018 at 8:46. Going once. Going twice. Okay. I will close the public hearing at 8:47. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 9 on tonight's agenda?
May we get a move and a second on that public hearing, please?
I'll make that motion.
Sure.
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Hennan.
Thank you. And item number 9,
Yes.
resolution number R4417, matter of adopting the Community Development Block Grant Program application for the 2018 to 2019 fiscal year.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
By Councilmember
Support.
Kadeco, support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgart.
All right, Mr. Mayor, as we advertised in the paper, the city is going to receive $31,914 this year in Community Development Block Grants, or CDBG as they're often referred to. They're working with working with Oakland County. We have specific parameters that we need to meet in how we allocate those funds. We have to hit a 70-30 split, with 70% going to improvements and 30% going to public services. For us, that means $9,574 is being allocated to public services this year. $3,000 of that going to Haven and the fantastic work that they do. $3,074 going to disabled services. What we do with that is we work with the library on large print books and things that help those that need specific allotments done for them, like vision issues or something like that. Make sure that they're able to enjoy the library fully. And last but not least is our popular Yard Services for Seniors program. So we are again funding those 3 programs. It's what we've traditionally done with our public services allotment. New this year is on the 70% side, so we're allocating $22,340 to making improvements to our accessibility in our public safety building. That is the opener for the front door, making sure that the lobbyway is ADA compliant, and the two public desks where you can go and either speak with an officer or speak with the records division, receive some kind of help from your local public safety department, making sure that those are likewise barrier free and there's not any issues there with those that seek help in a meaningful moment. That is our proposal for this year. Again, like I said, we advertise this and we hope to put these monies to very good use. I know in recent years on the 70%, we've done the tactile paving inserts on our sidewalks right before you cross over. There's little bumps you feel. Again, helping those that are visually impaired have a tactile warning that they're entering travel lanes on their street. So I think both are good use of monies. This year, like I say, we're hoping to make some physical improvements to the user experience in our public safety building. And that is the proposal from staff on how to utilize these funds.
Thank you. Councilmember Cadeco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Manager. Can you explain how someone would go about with the yard services, for example, how they would go about if they were in need of services?
That is actually administered through our recreation department. So the first piece of advice I would have is to phone that staff. They've got an application process. They work with you on getting you up to date on that. I believe this program has traditionally been more popular than the funds that we have for it. So there's a small copay, and I think we do on a first come, first served basis. So it would behoove anybody interested in this service to contact Parks and Rec as soon as possible.
And would that include shoveling walks also, or just raking leaves?
We've traditionally done both. This year, I think we're focusing on the yard waste, or I'm sorry, the yard services. Again, we'd like to be all things to all people. The funds this year just don't allow it to happen. So we're looking at some more creative ways to help those that could possibly need it, but outside of this particular program.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The comments, Council, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, City Manager, for bringing these worthwhile programs to us for consideration today. Do you have any indication as to the general trend in the level of funding year over year? This 31.9, is this about on par with prior years? Is this a little less? Is it a little more this time around?
A couple years ago, the city of Pontiac joined the county program. We did see a little bit of bump at that point as we spread it out over all the communities participating. Since that point, it has been pretty stagnant. We've gotten some increases, but I wouldn't label any of them significant per se, given the total dollar amount that we receive.
Sure.
I will note that at the federal level, there's been conversation for several years on the need for this particular program, and it does do a lot of good for our community, and I think we all hope to see it continue.
Thank you. Now, just a comment that these all are good programs, and in particular the battered and abused spouses program that we've traditionally received that benefit through Haven. I'm glad to see that on here again. I hope that nobody in our city ever needs that service, but if you do, please take advantage of it because it's important and they're here for you. So I'm glad to see that will be part of our support again this year. Thank you.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Just a quick comment. I'd like to thank the city manager for a great job. Based on the limitations that are put on us, how this money is allocated, you've come up with a very, very good thing. And the residents don't know this, but there's only a certain amount of money can go in certain categories, and there's lower limits, and it gets worse every year. And I hope it doesn't get any worse next year because they've got us pretty well pinned down to what we can do. But a good job, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate you saying it, but I have to deflect and defer to the staff that actually put this together. The finance department did a phenomenal job of getting this here, as well as Public Works and the library. So it truly is a team effort, but greatly appreciated, and I'll be sure to pass it along.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Hennan.
Yes.
Cadeco.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 10 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R4517, matter of electing to comply with the provision of Public Act 152 of 2011 by exercising the city's right to exempt itself from the requirements of the act for calendar year 2018.
Is there a motion to approve R4517?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Kadeko. Mr. Baumgart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a continuation of a policy that we adopted after PA 152 came out to essentially opt out of the parameters of this. Under PA 152, a city has a couple of different options as far as how it splits its cost sharing for medical benefits with its employees. None of them have been favorable we think, to the city of Berkeley in the time that PA 152 has been around. So we have elected each year to administer a program separate from what is quasi-mandated by the states. And as long as the opt-out provision is still in place, it is our continued recommendation that we continue that policy.
Thank you. Discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. And to give you the microphone right back here, Mr. City Manager, given the prior conversation around the state's drive to kind of chip away at our ability to make these kind of decisions, I am glad that we at least have the option to opt out. Could you, in a nutshell, kind of describe what it is we're choosing to not do?
Sure.
And why we think that's a good thing for our employees and retirees?
So what PA 152 does is gives cities basically two options, except for the hard cap, or except for the opt-out, as far as how we share the cost of medical benefits with our active employees. The first one is an 80-20 split, in which but it's exactly what it sounds like. So the cost of administering medical benefits each year is allocated to where you put the city assumes 80% of those costs, and an employee would have to essentially by law assume 20% of all those costs, no matter what those are. And so that's plan year, and that's administering a medical program, so not all benefits. I mean, insurance does still provide catastrophic care, but your premiums and then, of course, any co-pays that come along with the plan structure. So you would do 20% of those, or each year the state treasury calculates what they call a hard cap number. And this changes each year based on a couple of different factors, but where I think we actually exceed the parameters of this is the hard cap is a little bit under what we actually allocate to our employees. That number is again adjusted each year, but somehow never seems to be the right number for us. And so it either ends up, we think it's a little bit low, and to use it in a sense, it's too low for us. So Berkeley going above and beyond, because we're above and beyond kind of community, we exceed the hard cap limits by an estimate of $31,541 as compared to the $48,730 in 2017. And that is under our Community Benefit Blue, or CB4 program. So our employees already do a good job of picking up the burden. Not just our merit employees, but our unions. This has been really a team effort to get to the number that we all pay now and the cost allocations that we have, especially coming out of some of the worst years that municipalities have seen, the lost decade, as it were. So, all happened before I got here, but our employees banded together and they said, what can we do? And we found a way through this, and we found a way to split those costs in a fair and equitable way. And we didn't need the state to tell us how to do it. So we'd like to continue the policy that we have in place and continue the partnership we have with our employees, which is why we respectfully tell the state thanks but no thanks with the opt-out.
Thank you.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you think that the state will continue to let us do an opt-out in the future, or is this something that we're going to run into in a few years down the road?
The state's looking at post-employment benefits right now. I think they have. I don't see any will, and I haven't heard any discussions on them revisiting healthcare allocations for active employees. I think everyone's sort of holding their breath to find out what happens at the federal level with healthcare. The state's really looking now at post-employment benefits.
Yeah, in fact, if we did this, we did not opt out, we'd be in violation of some of our labor agreements, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Yes. We would have to go back to the drawing board and scrap them all and start
over again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, please call the roll, Ms. Boucher.
Kadeckel?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. R 3917 has passed. We've now reached the communications portion of our evening, and who is up first?
That would be Stedman.
Councilmember Stedman.
First of all, I would like to say the Holiday Lights Parade was just fantastic on Saturday. It was just a wonderful event for everybody. And Santa Claus was wonderful, of course. The Beautification Committee, Doug Deeds mentioned it earlier, but we are having a Holiday Lights contest. And if you want to nominate yourself or your neighbor or somebody else that you think has wonderful lights, please get those nominations in to City Hall, and we'll get them to the committee. The deadline is December 10th. A decision will be made on the 13th, and the awards will be presented on the 18th. In terms of the library, I'm not going to read all of the wonderful things that are coming at the library in December, but please look at at the website, because they have some wonderful programs they're offering this month. And that's all I have.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to say thank you to the city manager for the great thing we had at the library with the rain barrels and all the sewer information. Very, very informative. We had a lot of people there, standing room only. We may have to think about doing that again. I don't know if they're getting calls, but it was very informative. So thank you for doing that. I'd also like to thank all of the people that applied for the city council. We know you're interested now. We got your names. So we would hope to see you on more committees or volunteering and things. That's what we do. Once we get your name, we got it. We got your phone number too. So thank you again for applying, and look forward to seeing you more at some of the other committees and things. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, likewise, congratulations and thank you to all of the folks who took that step forward to apply for the vacant seat. Their desire to serve our community is absolutely fantastic and truly remarkable. And also, again, thanks to Matt for the rainwater event at the library. I do think it was filmed, right? So there's a chance
Yes,
it'll be
replayed
on the thing. So that's excellent. Thanks to the Historical Committee and the volunteers there for opening up the museum at the conclusion of the Holiday Lights Parade. Hopefully folks had a chance to get in there and have a little bit of a warm-up and enjoy a stroll down memory lane to kind of see where our city's been and how we're positioned for the future. So thanks again to that committee and the great work they did this year. The displays are fantastic, and they have an incredible degree of ideas here for 2018 as well. So exciting things to come from the Historical Committee. And then, as mentioned at the onset of our session here with the activities in the DDA, I'd like to continue some of the conversation of cool things coming up. I'll start with gratitude again for their terrific work with the Merry Month. There's so much more coming up here. Thankful to the DDA for their help with the Holiday Lights Parade and promoting it and all the great things in partnership with the committee there. And while the parade is over and Santa has greeted our community, there's activities continue. And I'll highlight just a couple here. There's a Merry Mittens scavenger hunt from December 3rd to the 16th. The James O'Donnell Merry Music Jazz concert was coming up this Thursday the 7th at 7 p.m. at Berkeley First on 12 Mile. Santa will be at the library on the 9th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. I hear he's an avid reader because he writes all his lists and all that stuff.
Checks them twice.
And he does. He checks them twice. That's right. The Merry Pets will have a chance to meet Santa on the 15th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Berkeley Chop Shop on 12 Mile. So bring your pets to the Chop Shop and meet Santa. As mentioned earlier, there's a Merry Mix and Mingle Ugly Sweater Shindig coming up on the 16th from 6 to 9 at the VFW. And if you'd like to learn more about these events or other things that are going on in our terrific downtown, please visit downtownberkeley.com. And the Facebook page is always updated, as is their Twitter feed. If you can like or subscribe to those, you'll always be in the know of what's going on with that. Another thing briefly worth mentioning, the catalytic project having to do with wayfinding, as listed in our master plan, is underway as well. The DDA, building on some of the work from the Coolidge Action Task Force, is working with Corbin Design on designs and logic for new refreshed signs in our community. I've rarely quoted myself. Other people have quoted me on occasion, but I was once quoted as saying that if you were to look at some of our signs, you might think our city colors were fade and rust. But I'm really pleased to see that with the new work underway with the wayfinding, which is signage to help you navigate the city and get to your favorite destinations. That work is continuing. You can see those designs and proposals at the same downtownberkeley.com as well. And finally, it was Maya Angelou who once said, "Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud." Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. And when we think about the volunteers that we have within the city, they bring their energy, they bring their commitment and passion, and they help make our community great. When you think about the things that are going on in the city and the opportunities we have, unfortunately, there's still a lot of clouds out there. So whatever we can each do in our own capacity with our own energies and interests and talents, please be a rainbow. Please help brighten and add some color to what some folks go through as a dismal or gray experience. There's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of great things to do, and we can all help brighten up others' days. So thank you for all that you do, and here's to passing it on.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Kadeko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tough act to follow. I too would like to thank everyone that is here tonight that spoke before the microphone, and also those that applied for the vacancy. It starts out as volunteerism, and then you work your way up. And I know many of you have volunteered throughout the city, even those that aren't here tonight. And I can't say enough about the volunteers in this city. They are number one and second to none. I too want to thank City Manager Matt and Library Director Matt. It was great, standing room only, as was mentioned, and a lot of rain barrels were sold, and the presentations were awesome. I thought that was really good. Holiday Lights Parade was awesome. Seemed to go at a quick pace this time, but it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I couldn't walk, but it was a nice carriage ride. I want to welcome Jay Grossman to our team as the communications coordinator. I look forward to working with him and having strong communication come from our city. Snowman Shuffle was a great success. Had about 130 runners, and it was awesome. And you had the fun run in the beginning, and then you had the actual 5K run, and everybody just had a great time, and from little kids all the way up to big kids. The ZBA meeting will be here on December 11th, so if anyone wants to attend. This Thursday, the CAC is meeting with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board across the street, correct? Across the street, and that's at 6:30. And that is open to the public, correct?
All our meetings are?
Yep. The Berkeley Legion is having their annual Children's Christmas Party Sunday, December 10th from 2 to 4 p.m. There'll be games, activities, and a special appearance not only by Santa, but Mrs. Claus will be with them. There'll be snacks, beverages, and desserts served for the children attending, and it's open to all children 12 and under. So hopefully you guys can make that. And then a week from tomorrow night at sundown starts the holiday of Hanukkah. So those that are celebrating, I want to wish them a happy Hanukkah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Hennon.
Yes, just wanted to say that my first office hours are coming up on Thursday, December 19th. That's a time where I invite people to come talk to me. ask me your questions, tell me what you're thinking, you know, tell us how we're doing, what we could be doing better, where we're doing well. That's going to be Tuesday, December 19th at the library from 6 to 8 p.m. You don't have to come for 2 whole hours. You can just come and go as you want, and I hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 items for you this evening. It was mentioned earlier by one of the applicants, but we are currently in the midst of our diaper drive benefiting the Judson Center. There are collection points throughout the city. There's a box here. I believe there's a box public safety, recreation. I think the library has them as well. Trying to get diapers of all sizes for children of all sizes who need them. The collection's going to be done up to December 22nd, and then of course we'll be taking them over there. Several people have a hand in bringing this back every year, and one of those is our public safety department, who are just full of wonderful people. So I thank the team that brings that forth every year, and you can't ask for a better group of people to help than children. As Councilman Kadekel said, we do welcome our brand new communications coordinator back. Of course, that's a position of great emphasis from this council as well as the administration. So we expect great things out of him. Noted journalist, is received many awards. We look forward to the professionalism that he brings, as well as just a learned storyteller and somebody who goes after all the facts. So excited to have his talent here in the city of Berkeley. So those are the only 2 items I have for you this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing this evening.
Nothing. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today. Falls on me to kind of wrap things up. I do want to thank the DDA for all of their work during Merry Month and everything else that the Downtown Development Authority is doing for the city of Berkeley. We are very lucky to have such a progressive, assertive DDA, and they work very well together, and that only benefits all of the residents in the city of Berkeley. Additionally, I want to thank the Junior Women's Club for the wonderful tree lighting ceremony. It is always certainly a hit. And of course, the parade committee. Not only did the co-chairs, Cindy Kuhn and Sue Citraro, do a phenomenal job working with the group to plan, organize, and execute the parade, they were also able to order up perfect weather this year, which is not always the case. Sometimes it's cold. If it can't snow, I like it to be like that. So it was a wonderful event. Certainly looking forward to next year's parade. And on a different note, we heard at the beginning of the meeting from one of our residents an issue with the sidewalk and tripping over that. And I think that is definitely something that we need to take a much better look at. I know we've been planning a sidewalk project, but I want to get some more information on that and get some information to us so we can get it out to the residents sooner rather than later, because it's not the first time that I've heard that, and I'm sure it's not the first time my colleagues have heard it as well, and that's something that I want to make sure we focus on. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn by Councilmember Kadekel.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Hennon. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Hennon?
Yes.
Kadekel?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. The December 4th, 2017 meeting has been adjourned.